Sure.
All right, guys, it is Wednesday night. It is time for our weekly conversation with Cougars, and we have a treat. We have the Kizziah sisters, Tracy and Tina, class of 83, class of 88. Good evening, ladies. How are y'all?
Great. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I am sure we're going to have a whole bunch of folks. I'm just getting set up over here. Both of these ladies were state champs. They were both cheerleaders for the football program and avid supporter of all sports, and were the epitome of what school spirit looked like in the 80s at Northview. And that's where I want to start. We were a brand new school. Tracy, you started, I think, the second year, maybe the fall of 79, which would have been the second school term, I think. And what was it like starting out in a brand new school? I assume you started as a ninth grader, but share what you remember about coming over to such a big campus and a new school.
We were really excited because, it was nice and clean and it was really big. And the hardest part for me is that for some reason, a lot of the people in our neighborhood went to Dothan High, but around our neighborhood, our neighborhood actually went to Northview. So I didn't know a lot of the people there. So when I got on the cheerleading squad, I had to meet everyone. I think Cheryl Longstaff was really the only person I really knew. Most of the people were from Girard. So that was fun because I got to make a lot of new friends, and you spend so much time together in the summer practicing that you do get really close with those people. But yeah, it was a great school, and I think there's just an excitement about starting a new school like that.
Well, certainly with all the newness of it. Now, which neighborhood did you guys grow up in? And you went to junior high, but by the time Tina came through, it was middle school. But which middle school or what school was it?
Well, I had a weird schedule. So I went to Hurd Elementary, and then we went to Montana Street. And then we got shipped over to Young Junior High School. We were the last year that had a junior high school in 7th grade. And then we went to Honeysuckle Middle School for 1 year. And then we started Northview. So we kind of zigzagged all around the city. But we also made a lot of friends because every time we go to a new school, we met different people. And by the time you were finished, you knew everybody in the city. That's why, honestly, several of us know all the cheerleaders at Dothan High School as well, because we went to school with them at Young Junior High School.
It's funny that you say that, because the students who came through in those first, say, almost 10 years, which would include my class and Tina's class as well, they all say that. But the guys and girls who came through in the later years, it wasn't nearly as familiar within the whole city during that pre-social media. And then when social media kicked in the last 15 years, everybody knows everything about everyone.
Yeah, a little too much.
Yeah. But that's
did not have that back then.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about how the mall and maybe the arcade and things like that was our social media. But I want to go to you, Tina, for just a second. I know you went to Honeysuckle. It was middle school by that time. Most of the middle schoolers at Honeysuckle come to Northview, or was it split and they go to Dothan High?
It was split. A lot of people went to Dothan High. So just like Tracy, we knew a lot of the cheerleaders that were Dothan High and a lot of the football players that were Dothan High. So we all still were pretty tight with a lot of them. And as I don't know if you know, there's quite a few of my friends that ended up marrying somebody from Dothan High.
Oh, speaking of familiar, we got Mama Pat is in the house. We got Hymns. We got Pat Fitch. Too many have rolled through. I'm sorry, I can't read them all. But they all say to tell you guys hello. And let's talk about Northside Mall. Let's talk about the arcade. Let's talk about Godfather's Pizza over at Circle West, wherever it was. We'll start with you, Tracy. I know for my group, I'm 2 years behind you, and I'm a few years ahead of Tina, but the mall seemed to be where the place to be, whether you were driving around the perimeter of the mall or you actually went in and ate somewhere or went to the arcade. What did your crew do when it came to coming to the mall or socializing at places?
We actually call that mall cruising.
That's right.
And you would cruise the mall on a Friday night. That's
Mhm,
where you would see everyone. And then you would end up over at the arcade, over on Westgate Parkway, I think is where it was.
mhm.
And you'd all play games over there and stuff. But I've got a good tidbit of information that most people probably don't know about the mall.
Oh, I know this one.
My first kiss was behind the mall.
Of course.
Jonathan
Of course.
McGowan. We both have braces, and for
Awesome.
some weird reason, when you're young, people always say your braces are going to make your stick together. And you're like, yes, that's all I can think about when I have my first kiss.
You know, there was the
That's
bridge.
The bridge.
There was a
behind the
bridge
mall.
behind the mall that went to some apartment
Yes.
buildings or something back there. So you could always find people kissing back there on that little bridge.
That's so funny. Jonathan, I played on the same soccer team as Jonathan the first year they moved to Dothan. And Jonathan was a fabulous soccer player and took us all the way to the state tournament. We got killed up in Birmingham, but he was a one-man wrecking crew. And of course, Martha was in my class, his
Yeah.
sister. We got, Carlisle Morris, Mark Chambliss says to tell you guys hello. Thank you, Mark.
Alrighty,
yeah.
Mark.
Mark Chambliss was my first homecoming date in 9th grade. Hi,
There you
Mark.
go. There you go. Tina, let's talk about, I know that Tracy is 5 classes ahead, maybe
Right.
four plus years age-wise. I don't know from my experience, I'm the older brother of two younger siblings. Let's talk a little bit about that dynamics. I know that can be a good thing and sometimes a tough thing, particularly with Tracy being a cheerleader
Yeah.
and being a very social person. I know that at times that you guys, I know how siblings can be, but with that spread of age,
Yeah.
with her at the high school, you're still in elementary school, I think, when she started, or middle school.
That's
Did you-
right. I
Yeah.
was still in elementary school because I'm so much younger.
All right, here's my question. When do you remember starting to come over to Northview, or did you come to the Friday night games to see your cheer? Or
We would
what
come.
are some of those early memories?
Yeah, we didn't come to all of them because we had a place down here at the beach, so we came a lot on the weekends. But we did go to 2 or 3 a year, so that was always fun to, I guess, lean over the rails, like, hey, I know a cheerleader, look at me. So that was fun. And then I guess when I got to Northview and I met some of the people that had gone to high school with her, and then just the teachers too. The teachers were always like, oh, you're Tracy's little sister. Oh, okay. But you know, the people are, so they called her Monkey all the time because she did so many of the gymnastics things on the field and all that. So I got a lot of, hey, little monkey, hey, little monkey, hey, little monkey, or hey, little Kizziah,
You're
hey, little
welcome.
Kizziah, hey, little
Hey,
Kizziah.
those were terms of endearment. They weren't meant to be mean.
Well, I thought it was fun because I was walking down the hall and a lot of older people that I
That's
really
right.
didn't know,
That's right.
you know, identified me. So I was in a group of people with a lot of older people saying hello to me. So I was like, hey, and I was like, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys cheered all through high school, but Tracy, how important or how central was it being a cheerleader as part of your social life or part of your world? Was it just something you did, or was it something that really was very central to who you were in your high school years?
Oh, I would definitely say it was part of our identity. Like we, all of my good friends, especially Rosemary and I, we lived, breathed, slept, ate cheerleading. My mom said I used to go around the house cheering around the house. Wherever she saw me, we were doing cheers. We were just constantly thinking cheerleading. You know, it was just fun. It was just fun to be a part of a group,
Mhm.
fun to be part of a team, fun to get to wear the fun outfits and, you know, paint the big run through banners. And, you know, my parents would probably say it gave us something to do and kept us out of trouble too.
But did it really? Here,
I went to college, but anyway.
Yeah, and there was no social media. So yes, it did.
yeah, that's in the age of no social media. And I've assured you both the statute of limitations has probably expired for most of the things you may or may not admit to tonight. Who knows more about the game of football between the two of y'all?
Me.
I don't know. We've grown up watching Alabama football our whole lives with our dad, and so we've grown up around football.
But I do,
Some
I
of it,
do remember her having to, I think, Rosemary, it was a homecoming game, and Rosemary was on the homecoming court, and I guess whoever the co-captain was too.
It's me.
Were you the
I was
co-captain?
co-captain.
So she had to call the cheers that night. And I remember my dad having to have a conversation with her about the difference between defense and offense.
No.
So she would know which, yeah. So she would know which cheers to call, because she was like, "What if I mess up and call?"
I mean, before the game.
Yes.
Yeah, not during the
No,
game.
not during the game. You're-
that's funny. You know, it's, I knew this would bring out the rivalry. David Mitchell has joined us. Hey, David, thank you, bud. You may have grown up going to games and your dad enjoying Alabama football and you cheering and having a whole bunch of buddies on the team, but following the game while you're supposed to be cheering is a whole different ability and agility. You're supposed to be leading the crowd with your back to the action on the field.
My husband and I had this conversation today.
Mhm. I think I know Tracy's answer, so I want Tina's. How much of your time was spent looking over your shoulder or actually turned 180 degrees watching the game and maybe explaining to some of your cheermates of what was going on?
It was probably 50-50. I mean, I think we all spent a lot of time turning around watching the game, because really you had to, if you were paying, you know, if you were going to call the right cheer or do the right thing. And of course, and it was our friends out on the field too. So we wanted to watch them play and see what they were doing. And we would love it when the players were actually right behind us, because we could turn around and actually talk to them and interact with everybody and say, hey, and all that stuff. But I'd probably say it was about 50-50. I mean,
But also where you guys were located most of the time, you were really in harm's way, potentially being so close to the sidelines.
that's true.
I fully don't appreciate anyone who did not go through the tryouts process can't fully appreciate the stress and the pressure that the two of y'all and everyone went through. I remember the big reveal at the end of the night and who made it, who didn't, and all the drama. But did you guys also feel that same stress and go through the drama of who may not have made it this particular year? Kind of take us into that world a little bit. Tracy, you first. What do you remember about the big reveal or the announcement of who made it this particular year?
Well, I think what a lot of people may not realize is that when you tried out that afternoon for cheerleading, that was only 1/3 of your score. 1/3 of your score was from the teachers.
Mhm.
And so they knew you, kind of knew, you know, your character and integrity. And so they gave you a score as well. And then 1/3 was your grades. So you also had to have good grades. I guess the thinking behind that was that, you know, if you were going to do an extracurricular activity, you should be able to manage your time wisely and keep your grades up. So, but getting back to the actual tryout, it was really exciting. It was really fun. Rosemary and I we kid just the two of us about this. Our parents, they worked. A lot of parents didn't, but mine and Rosemary's parents worked. And we were every year we tried out, everybody would get tons of flowers for good luck and balloons and things like that. And my mom's going to kill me for telling this story. Rosemary and I, we had working moms, and so we were the only two that did not ever get anything like wishing you good luck. And we were the only two that made it every single year in our grade. So we just thought that was kind of interesting. We were like,
You're self-motivated.
I know, that's what
What you don't realize is because it worked the first year, they weren't going to upset the streak.
That's right.
That would have completely messed up things your junior year, your senior year, if they'd have sent flowers.
Then it would be bad luck, right?
That's right. That's right. Tina, what do you remember about the process? Did it get to you? Was it stressful or not so much?
Well, it was stressful. And I don't know if you remember, I didn't make it my freshman year. I did not make it at all. And then my sophomore year, I didn't make varsity. I made junior varsity.
Mhm.
So it was pretty stressful, mostly because they kept you in that back room and you were kind of, you had the people that hadn't tried out yet, one room. Then
Mhm.
right in the middle is tryouts, and every once in a while, you pretend to go to the restaurant so you could like peek through the thing to see what they were doing. And then in the whole other side were the people that had already gone. So you
Mhm.
couldn't even ask them anything about it or what was going on or how they did or anything else. So you really didn't see anybody till you were completely through all of it, all the way on the other side. So that was probably more stressful than actually trying to me, just trying to talk to your friends to see how they did. But it was fun, but I mean, it taught you a little bit about competition and hanging
Well,
in there and
sure,
supporting each other.
sure. Was it just assumed by you and the family that you would be a cheerleader because of Tracy's already having gone through it? Or did you make a decision really independent of her?
Oh no, I did it. I was a bomber cheerleader for the league, the football league earlier
yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and the Cardinals and all that. And I did it at Honeysuckle, and
Mhm.
I enjoyed it. But I liked the dancing side of it. I didn't really care as much about the cheering side of it, but I loved the dancing part more than all of it. So, but yeah, no, I don't think anybody expected me to do it because Tracy did it. I think I just did it because I enjoyed it too. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of fun, Tracy, we got a cheermate of yours, Jill Taylor Goss, has joined us.
Oh, yeah. She was a neighbor also.
Yeah.
And her mom was my, I think, third grade teacher. I think, no, not third grade, second grade, maybe. Anyway, Jill, thank you for joining us. And I hope one day you'll join me on the show. What about, I didn't get to ask you yet, Tina, about coming over from Honeysuckle to Northview. I know you had been to the school probably many times because of either activities with Tracy or with other friends, whatever it may be. So it may not have been an unknown as much as it was to maybe the typical incoming ninth grader, but it's a gigantic campus,
Oh yeah.
particularly coming from Honeysuckle.
Sure.
So and Tina or Tracy had mentioned being part of a cheer squad in that August. I know you didn't get that ninth grade, but did you have a group of friends who you had coming in from Honeysuckle or from other parts of Dothan who you knew when you entered ninth grade?
I did. I knew a lot of the Girard girls too, because we did a lot of the Bible studies and stuff like that. We went to summer camps and some of those things together. So I knew a lot of people going in. So that made it a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing I had to get used to when I got there was the big giant room with all the lockers and not getting lost. So that made it it made it much more fun when you knew people and you could ask them where you were supposed to go because you couldn't remember where your locker was.
Well,
but I had a good group of friends and I had an opportunity to go a couple of times because Tracy was there. So I knew it was a really big school, but it was fun.
well, this is, I guess, going to be seen as a criticism of the planners, the architects of the school. But who thought it was a good idea to shove 800 lockers into that one open space outside the library?
The person that didn't have to go find their locker in 5 minutes to get to class.
All of those bodies in one space just didn't work. I think maybe 15 or 20 years into the school's existence, they then took them out and put them all around the wall, as every other high school in the world has ever done. I'm sure that made it a little easier for access, but it's still, and Tracy, maybe you remember this. I was a freshman, I think your senior year. So it may have been right after that. There was an M80 or a cherry bomb that went off on purpose in one of the lockers. And that caused a huge problem for at least that day. Nothing like it would happen in today's time. But do you remember something like that? It may have been after you're gone.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Huh.
Okay. Anyway,
it wasn't me.
No, it was Eddie Holland and
Yeah,
one of the Killabrews. It was common knowledge at the time that it happened. But what did you like best about school, Tina, other than maybe the 3:15 bell going off? Actually, I think it was 3:05 bell.
Maybe. I don't remember. 250, wasn't it? It was 2:55. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Who knows?
So, actually, it was walking around after your class to get to the next class because it was almost like a sport to see who all you could see and say hey to and talk to and pass your note that you wrote in the class before to. And office aide, I was an office aide. That was a lot of fun because you didn't do anything but take a walk around the halls basically and waved all your friends through the
I was
window.
going to say you hung out with Shirley C. and whoever else was in the office for.
Yeah, I hope she's not on tonight.
She will be. Knowing Shirley, she's on almost every time. Every Wednesday.
Yeah.
She remembers everything.
I'm sure she does. That might have been why I didn't make it my freshman year. She had to, maybe she graded my thing.
Well, and Tracy, we got an Amber Alert going off. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
I hope they find whoever they're looking for. Tracy, what was your favorite part about being in the school? Please tell me it was the rectangle pizzas.
Oh, I did love those. I ate a lot of those with French fries. And we also like to get those hot fries out of the vending machines. Remember the hot fries?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's, it's so funny when I have the younger generations come on the show and I say, well, do you remember where the smoking section was or where the motorcycles parked or the vending machines? They're looking at me like I'm speaking Chinese to them.
Yeah.
Just a whole different. Oh, Shirley C remembers the cherry bomb incident and says to tell you both hello. She does not attribute either of you to that.
That's good.
We're in the clear.
Social media. No social media.
That's right. That's right. Tracy, what was it about your class? Your senior class, the class you came in, y'all were the second full 4 years at Norfolk. What made your class special?
We grew up together. I mean, I moved to Dothan in the 3rd grade, and I feel like till this day, I still have some of those friends that I talk to, and we are all really good about going back to our reunions. I've been to my 10, 20, 30, and February, the end of February, we've already planned our 40-year high school reunion.
Wow.
And Celeste is on it. Celeste King, she's so great. She plans them, and we've had a lot of people already responded. I mean, like 40 people probably responded already. I'm coming, I'm in, I can't wait. We're so excited. I feel like our grade just likes each other. I mean, they've always gotten along. We've always gotten along, and they're like my brothers and sisters. Like, really, somebody will pop a picture up every now and then of, like Miss Corbett's 4th grade class. And it's like everyone you graduated with is in there, and pictures like that. Somebody popped one up the other day of kindergarten. It was like tons of the people, or a pre-K class. I think it was Mary Lynn Wells or somebody. And it was, people we graduated with, like we just grew up with them. So I think when you're in a smaller town and you do get the privilege of staying with the same people all through school, one way or the other, you do form lasting relationships with them. Like, I still talk to a lot of them. You'll think this is funny. Rosemary called me last week, and when the phone rang, I said, "Oh, it's Rosemary." My husband said, "Oh, see you in 2 hours. Take it in the back, please."
That's awesome.
And Tina Brown texted me yesterday. And Tina Brown, she's been living here this summer and for a couple of years, and she texted me yesterday and said, "Let's get together." So I feel like we went out with Sean Evans last year and had dinner with him.
Met him for dinner one night.
Yeah, so Tina knows all my friends, and I know a lot of her friends. So that is the good thing. We have always done a lot together. My mom always says, even though there's a lot of age between us, that we've always been like super close.
Yeah.
Our cheerleaders would come down here and go to the beach and ride around with my dad and the Jeep and the boat when we were in high school. And Tina always went with us. So she always knew my whole cheerleading squad and everybody.
The younger sister tag along, that's for sure.
Right.
Coach Randy Hicks says to tell you both hello. Tina, I would ask you about the class of '88, but we know it was a terrible class, so there's really nothing special about your no, I tease. Same question.
Because he wasn't in it.
What was special about the class of '88 to you? What was unique about your class?
I think we had a lot of really creative, fun people in our class. And I would almost say some of the same things Tracy just said about our bond and how we like each other and hang out all the time. When I think back in college, I I have more friends today from high school than I do that I've kept all these years that I still talk to, that I don't have from college really.
Mhm.
So it's kind of weird because you feel like when you're older, you're able to meet more people. And at Alabama, there's many people to meet. But I just didn't bond with all those people as much as I did with the people at Northeast. And I still see Beth Stevenson, and Jennifer Hearn still comes down, spends a weekend with me, and I still see a lot of people all the time. So
Yeah,
it's
and
a
she
lot of
always
fun.
says Bernard's one of my best
Yeah.
friends. She always considers you her best friend.
You
even
and
from
I have
high
always,
school.
we've kept in touch and talked for a while. So
We have, but when you've got that college time period, it's 4, maybe 5, for some people it's 6 years, depending on how fast you went
hey,
through school.
that's not nice.
I wasn't implying anything, but you got to keep in mind that time period or your childhood, that's
true.
more than a decade. It's 15 years of your formative growing years. And I get it. We all have that group of friends. Now, I bet from the friends that you both have named, if you guys were to bring up one incident, you wouldn't even have to talk about the incident. It would just immediately bring a smile to your face when you see that friend and take you back. So I'm going to take you back, and I want you to tell me, start with you, Tracy. Give me a couple of songs that were very common that you would, as cheerleaders, you guys enjoyed either dancing to, had routines to. I was playing Madonna as we first came on. Obviously, she was huge all through the 80s. But did you have any particular bands or songs that take you back, when you hear them now, take you back to that time period?
We had this one particular routine that we would do, and we thought we were really cool. It was to let it whip.
Mm-hmm.
And we would make a big pyramid,
Mm-hmm.
and we turned it all the way around. We thought turning that pyramid and walking, the people on the bottom walked, and we turned that thing all the way around. And then we made this, we got in a long row, and we made like this big S thing with our pom-poms. And we just thought, compared to the cheerleaders today, that was not like the big basket tosses like they do now and all the phenomenal stuff. But for the time in the 80s, moving a pyramid around that to let it whip was pretty cool. But anything Michael Jackson or 70s disco kind of takes me back.
I was going to say, just like in any modern sports, football, baseball, whatever, the athletes are bigger, faster, stronger. They do things that back in our day, we never thought we would ever be able to do. And what we did back then is very pedestrian, just like what you just described. Some of the things you guys thought were pushing the envelope and were really out there and wowed the crowd. I'm sure the current cheerleaders are just like,
Yeah.
Well, Tina, same thing for you. I know Madonna was a big influence during that time period. Who else was big?
I think we had some routines to Bon Jovi, a couple of Bon Jovi songs. You Dropped the Bomb on Me. That was always our great one. That always made you move and groove. Our big thing was we would take 4 or 5 songs, and then we would splice them all together and make a routine with about mix. 4 or 5, a big mix. So you would start real fast or end slow or whatever and do all the different things. That's what I remember the most about a lot of our pep rallies and the things we did for that.
And I know Miss Hemby was I don't know if was it the sponsor, was that the title? The cheerleading head of cheerleaders for teenage years. What about you, Tracy?
She was Tracy.
Oh, she was Tracy. And then who was it after her?
I had Miss Andrews.
Okay. So it must maybe when Carla and Beth came through.
I think when they stopped cheering, she stopped being the cheerleading spot at that point. She might have done it one more year maybe, but
she did. She was the head cheerleader sponsor, Sylvia Hemby at Hemby's Lawn, the whole time I was there. And then the coach we had, or sponsor we had for junior varsity, was actually Coach Hicks' wife, Mrs. Hicks. Yeah, Tim Hicks, and she taught us biology too. We thought she was so cool. She would do the routine. She could do the routines with us and cheers. And
I think our JV sponsor was Miss Cotton.
I think I had Miss Hicks for maybe anatomy. if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she was science, but shout out to all those sponsors
Yeah.
that took all that time to work with us and go on all those games and put up with all of
Yeah.
our teenager emotions and
Let's take, and this is probably common for both of you guys, your experiences. Tell us about the summers. You had to get ready for the season. You had to get ready for pep rallies and all of that. But would it actually start in the spring before? Or when did you guys start getting ready for the season and the school year, which usually was right around Labor Day, was about the first game?
Well, we always went to a summer camp, and it was
Mhm.
usually at Auburn University.
Mhm.
But we got together way before then because, of course, you had to coordinate routines and cheers and things you were going to take so you could compete with those while you were there. But we usually started pretty much right after tryouts. When you were on varsity, though, you actually had a period that was cheerleading, kind of like you guys did football. It would be the end of the day, maybe your last class of the day, so you could get together and practice and do all that stuff. So if you had just made the team or if you weren't in that class, you had to wait. Obviously, you had to wait till the end of the year before you started, but we usually started, pretty soon after we made it and got together and started learning different things and teaching different cheers and all that.
And I had Miss Hemby and Carla on many months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the Hemby driveway was where a lot of the banners would be painted.
Yes.
Routines learned in their front yard. Was that, Tracy, was that where you would spend a lot of time?
Yes, for sure. Her driveway doing some banners and stuff in her backyard doing cheers. I remember specifically being in her backyard, and Rosemary Grant, I think, had made cheerleader at Auburn. And she came back to teach us a bunch of cheers that she knew from college, and she was going to help us out and teach us new cheers. And she had us doing some crazy stunts and pyramids, but all of that was in Miss Hemby's backyard. No mats or anything, and we just stuck it out and did it.
That's right. Well,
kudos for her for letting us use her yard for that.
I was a freshman the fall of '82, your senior year. We had won the state title the year prior. We come in that first, I will never forget this, that first pep rally scared the hell out of me. I'm sitting with the freshmen, we're upstairs. It's like a rock concert. And all of the older cheerleaders and football players down on the gym floor and the band, all of that was like a concert. It was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And all these years later, it's still very vivid in my head. My question to you both is, my additional comment is, they were all very creative. You guys had the most awesome skits and ways to pump up the student body, and particularly when Dr. Smith finished with his poem at the end, or his chant. But my question is, how did you guys come up with those routines? Because I don't remember them ever being duplicated over the years. Where did the ideas flow from?
We always had a theme. We would just kind of brainstorm and come up with like a theme. So it was either going to be like Western, and so you dress like a cowboy. One time we had like partners and we did like a Western dance and cowboy boots. Sometimes it was like bringing the circus, we did clowns and
Do you
just all
remember the one
kinds
with
of
Red
stuff.
Holland? Didn't he come to one of y'all's and do the fishing? Y'all had a fishing one, and
Yeah.
Red Holland from the Red Holland Fishing Show showed up. And
The only people watching are within the Dothan and city of Dothan Northview community. When this gets out on YouTube, they're gonna be like, "What?
who's Red Holland? Let's call him.
It's gonna send them on a deep dive looking for Red Holland." But
yeah,
it
we
was
put it in a theme.
it was so creative, and you guys clearly it was evident you put a lot of time and heart and soul into these routines. And by the time I guess it was, you go to class to see who would cheer the loudest, and inevitably it would be the senior class most of the year, because they just, they were on their way out.
Yes,
But
I remember that.
what do you remember about the principal's chant at the end, and how you could never hear him finish because all the students chimed in with him?
Well, he would always end it with, "Don't meet me there," and then everyone else would scream with him, "Beat me there."
Yep.
everyone in the whole school.
And then he would jump up and click his heels twice.
That's right. I do remember that.
And the crowd would go wild.
I can remember talking about that at home, actually, and our dad trying to do that a couple of times. And we all took turns trying to do it. None of us could do it. If we had the camera then, that would have been fun.
And it was even more impressive. I actually found a video of him doing it. It's on the North group. It's grainy. It's that old.
Yeah.
But it was even more impressive. He was always wearing a suit and
dress shoes.
Normal dress shoes. That's right. It's not like he was in barefoot or in tennis shoes.
Right.
The pep rally ends, school ends for the day. Where would you guys go before you ultimately had to be at Rip Hughes or get on the bus, depending on where it was? But what did you get to go home? Did y'all hang out, go eat? What did y'all do in that 3 hours time after school pep rally and then going to Rip Hughes?
I think it depends on if it was an away game or a home game. If it was away, I think we stayed there and ended up eating together and getting on the little bus and going. If it was home, I want to say we went home and just met back.
We just met
I know
back
they
at
met
Rip
back at the
Hughes.
stadium because we used to tease Rosemary because she had the worst sense of direction. She'll kill me for saying this. She'll laugh about it. She actually thinks it's funny, but she would get lost going to the stadium.
And she had only been there, I don't know, dozens of.
I know. So we did
but-
go in our own cars.
Just remember, everyone has their strengths.
Right. And
Yeah.
she's
Carol Reynolds has joined us and Tara Wade Estes. Thank you, ladies. Of course, I've got Tracy and Tina Kizziah, both cheerleader state champs and tons of school spirit even still. And Tara, Rosemary was the worst with directions. Yep.
And I just texted back and forth with Tara Wade the other day. See, there again, another friend that I still keep in touch with.
That's
Hi,
right.
Tara.
I want to go to Rip Hughes on a Friday night. For us, that there was no better place in the fall for football season. In my mind's eye, there were 60, 70,000 people. It was as big as Legion Field in my mind's eye. The reality is it held 10,000 people. And most of the time there were between 4 and 6, maybe 8,000, depending on if it was Dothan High game. But there was no greater place for a football player growing up in Dothan. And I've said this and many others have echoed this. When we were in the home team locker room pregame, the band and the cheer, you guys were directly above where our locker room was and the student body as well. That was the very best because we could feel the energy, we could hear it, and it got the team going. Take us to your pregame, getting to Rip Hughes, all of that tradition or whatever you guys would do, because by the time we came out at the end, you had the big banner up and it was time to run onto the field and start the game. So take us to a Friday night at Rip Hughes. What was special for either of you guys?
But really, the hardest part was trying to figure out who was going to hold who to hold the banner up and not get knocked over when the football players hit it as hard as they could. I think we learned after the first couple of times that we had to start putting little holes in it so it wouldn't pull us down every time they ran so hard and knocked the banner over. But no, I remember thinking how grand it was walking in and just seeing all of it. And if you ever came up from the inside up the walkway and up, it really looked just huge. But mostly just making a plan, getting it together, making sure we had our list of cheers that we were going to do and our chants and when we were going to do our dances, and just planning kind of just like you guys probably did, and making sure our lineups were straight and we looked decent and our hair was up, and just that kind of regular kind of planning thing, just like you guys did. A little more giggly maybe, but.
Tracy, I'm going to come back to you, but we have here we go. Ask Tina about when Tina Brown and she got pulled over in Tina's car with the banner poles hanging out of the windows. It was around midnight. It was a Montgomery game. And thankfully you had your cheer uniforms on because you were so giddy and nervous. He thought that y'all were intoxicated. She meant Tracy, not Tina.
Yeah, I was about to say that wasn't me. That was
Yeah.
Tracy.
Tracy, do you remember this at all?
I don't remember it.
It's okay. The statute, I'm telling you, the
Social
statute of
media.
limitations are gone.
There's no social media. There's no evidence of that at all.
So who asked that question?
Tara did, and we're
Tara.
gonna go with Tracy's blanket denial. It never happened.
If it wasn't on social media, it didn't happen.
Tara said it was terrifying when you guys got pulled over. Anyway, let's go back. Tracy, what about for you? What was special about Rip Hughes Stadium on Friday nights?
Well, it was just go time. You know, it was like you were just ready to perform. You were ready to just get out there and get it done. And I was one of the tumblers. So when everybody ran through the run-through banner, you know, I followed up with a lot of like round up back handsprings and layouts, tugs, those kind of things. And then Melinda Watley did some of that on our team as well, Cheryl on staff. And it was just in energy, you know, just so energetic when you got out there. Everybody had school spirit. And, you know, you're saying, you know, it seemed like there were 50,000 people there and there were really probably like 6. But 6,000, I mean, 6,000 bodies in the stand. That's still a lot of people.
It is.
It
A lot of
is,
people
it
to cheer
is.
to. So
And about half of them had bread that they had gone to get across the street.
right.
From the bread.
Because they baked it fresh and you could smell it every time you got out of your car.
Now, was Mama Pat one of the parents who would bring butter into the stadium?
yeah.
'Cause there were a lot of parents who brought butter and butter knives into the stadium.
She would say that's too fattening. We couldn't put the butter on the bread.
Now, particularly during the first 10 years of the school's football program, we didn't lose a lot of games. It was Coach Parrish had a great group of athletes and the coaching staff, et cetera. So losses, particularly at Rip Hughes, were few and far between. How did you guys deal with the losses? Because they were your buddies on the field. They were your friends, boyfriends, whatever. But how did the losses impact you guys? Did you feel it like the ball players did?
I'm sure we were sad and upset, you know, excuse me. Especially us, like I said, growing up Alabama, diehard football fans, you know, we took it pretty hard. I know it's supposed to be just a game, but like you said earlier, you guys have practiced so long and so hard, and we have practiced so long and so hard that, you know, when you didn't win, it was tough, but you know, it's one of life's lessons, and you do learn a lot about being a gracious loser. I used to teach kindergarten and first grade, and it's one of the things we talked about, you know, that it's just as important to be a gracious loser as it is to be a gracious winner. And, you know, you take things away from that, and it's all about your attitude and thanking the other team. You would always go out and congratulate the other
Always.
team.
Always.
Always. No matter what.
Nobody ever had a bad attitude about that
Right.
when we were younger. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Talk about the halftime, go over and see the opposing cheer squad. Was there any friction, or was it pretty friendly between the two groups?
Well, it was usually pretty friendly. The best time, of course, is when you played Dothan High, because you knew a lot of the cheerleaders, of course. And then sometimes, you know, if you played Montgomery, you know, we played Montgomery, or a couple of teams taught, you know, the next year, every year we played pretty much the same. So sometimes you remembered some of the girls from the year before when you met them, and, you know, you immediately went to them and talked for a little bit. But no, most of the time, everybody was pretty friendly. Nobody was really.
So there was no smack talk about how your squad was better at the previous summer camps, cheer competition, none of that going on? See, that would have been prime opportunity right there, but anyway, another
girls weren't taught to be that way. We were taught to support each other and be sweet at that point.
I'm sure I have no
That's
doubt.
her story, and we're sticking to it.
That's right. Well, another common thing that you guys had experience-wise is you both were able to celebrate the state championship on Legion Field. Tracy, you were a junior in 81. Tina, you were a sophomore in 85. And that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
I want to take you back both to that respective days. Tracy, your team was 13-1 and largely the best team that Northview ever fielded in 41 years. Tina, our year in 85, we were the cardiac team. We came from behind and had a whole bunch of overtime games, and we're always coming from behind.
I remember that. Weren't we down like 3 touchdowns or something, and we came back?
We did against Lee in the semifinals, but it was every week. It was, it was just not like Tracy's year where you guys had such a great defense led by Larry Roberts and so many guys who ended up playing at the next level and even into the pros. Take us to Legion Field. How different was that, Tracy, for you at that? You may have been to that stadium as a fan, maybe for a previous game to watch, but not to cheer. I mean, that's a whole different experience, isn't it?
It really was. We were super excited because Auburn and Alabama always played each other on that field. And I had been to that, that game and that electric environment. And the game before that, so, you have to win your district, your region, your semi, to get to the state. And those were tough games. And they were close as well, but super exciting, especially Jeff Davis, I think, of Montgomery. But then when we got to the state, and that was a tough game. I think we only won by 1 point. I can't remember exactly, but I think we only won by 1 point.
It was actually the worst played game by Northview all year. A bunch of fumbles. No, it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
Several who've been on this show talk about how Carver, this is known by many people, Carver actually watched our practice from the press box, and that was really a big no-no. But anyway, that Jeff Davis game, many say was the best game of the year earlier in the playoffs. But getting to cheer on AstroTurf in front of the biggest crowd you probably had ever cheered in front of, that had to have been pretty exhilarating, I would think.
You felt like a college cheerleader for a day. You really did, cheering for a college team. I mean, we had Brent Gilbert and Larry Roberts and Dickie Lillard and Alan Lopez, who never missed a kick. And, I mean, our entire grades. I mean, our grade of boys were big and fat. And if you weren't big, you were fast and you were scrappy. And we got lucky. Sometimes in life, you just get lucky when all the right players end up on the same team at the same time. And we just had that golden ticket, and it was just fantastic to be a part of that. And look what I brought for you today. We got a state ring. All the football players got a state championship ring, and they had the same top to the rings made into a necklace for the cheerleaders. See, that's the kind of camaraderie we had. They didn't leave us out when they did the rings. They included us. I don't know where the camera is.
No, I can see it. I want you to send me a picture. Oh, yeah. I can see it very well. But I do want you to make a photo for us so I can put it in the group.
Yeah.
Tina, our class, I mean, our year in 85 was, like I said, it was a cardiac games. Every week was heart-stopping. We got through all those games. But the state championship game was unlike any of the previous 10 weeks. We started out slow, but then we ended up scoring a bunch in the middle, and then we cruised at the end, which was very unlike our season. For you, what was it like being, again, at Legion Field, AstroTurf? It's cold, but huge crowd. What was that experience like?
Actually, that year I was not a cheerleader, or I was a cheerleader. I'm sorry. I was a junior varsity cheerleader. But I did end up at that game on the field. I just happened to remember this the other day when I was looking through my stuff. Do you remember the Cougar girls? Do you remember Dawn Hathcock?
Sure.
And Julia Holman, I think, and some of the other girls. Beth was on it. Somehow or another, I don't know if they let me just come along because somebody didn't show up or wasn't going to be able to go. So they let me kind of substitute in. But I was down on the field down there holding posters and banners with all of them during that game. Even though I wasn't a cheerleader, I still got to be a part of that. And it was a huge field. It was a little overwhelming when you turned around and looked at all of it. Kind of like Tracy said, we'd been to some of the Auburn, Alabama games. So it was just an amazing feeling to actually stand out on the field and all that.
You know, at Legion Field, where you could walk around the perimeter of the field but not be in the stands, they've got that walk area. And when you're at an Alabama or Auburn game there and you look up in the stands, that's different than when you're on the turf itself, whether you're either as a cheerleader or Cougar girls or on the team. But that day, just because of its importance to all of us, it just seemed like, again, there were 80,000 people in this.
Yes, it just seemed overwhelming and huge and just giant.
You can't convince me otherwise. There were at least 80,000 people. Actually, it was like 22,000. But most of Dothan was there, that's for sure, at least our part of
A lot of
Dothan.
people.
It was a lot of people. Yeah.
It was. And
Our high
guys,
school.
we've got just a few more minutes, but I'm talking with Tracy and Tina Kizziah. They both cheered in the 80s, and I appreciate their going through some of these days gone by with us. And you both have grown children, and I know they've heard your stories to the point where either they don't roll their eyes anymore because they've heard it too much. They're now correcting your mistakes on what's the actual truth of the stories. Am I fair in that assessment with both of your sets of children?
The kids now are a little bit different about high school. They like their high school experience, but mine didn't get super pumped up for like homecoming game,
That's what I was
homecoming
going to
dance,
ask.
Yeah.
proms,
It was a
and
whole different experience for
I mean,
them,
we went
wasn't
to
it?
everything, right down to the twerp dances. I mean, everybody went to all the dances. Like homecoming was a thing. Like everybody went. It never even crossed our minds not to go to some of that stuff and participate.
Well, I don't mean for me to sound like an old head, but you're right. Our respective experiences in high school, it was so much more. Maybe this is social media. Maybe it was simpler times. Our childhoods, if you will, adolescence, that time period was so much more focused on what was the here and now and what was in front of us, and your neighbors, your community. And this is not a criticism. It's the way it is in society. My children's experience is similar to what you just described, that the dances and going to the games and things that was not central to their high school experiences like it was so much for ours.
I think that's why we're still all friends with all of them.
Mhm.
We did everything together with them.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think at that point, we all just had so much more spirit and Cougar spirit and just school spirit in general. And two, it was, although Northview really wasn't small, it was smaller than, like my kids went to Hoover High School, and we used to call that Hoover University because it was just so big and there were so many people. And
How many kids were in their graduating classes? 700, 800 or more?
900.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was a lot.
We had 325
Yeah.
for my class, and probably similar to y'all's.
But yeah, Jack didn't even go to his prom this year, and he was a senior. He didn't even go. He was like, I don't want to go.
Yeah, there are a lot of them like that.
It's weird.
But Tina's daughter was the homecoming attendant at Hoover. I have to throw that out there. Shout out to Sarah.
I want to give a shout out to Doug Entz, who's just joined us. Hey, Doug, thank you for stopping by. Growing up in Dothan, we all have fond memories. We all have not so fond memories. But I'll start with you, Tracy. I guess, can you give us a summary of when you look back on childhood in that time period? Do you have sweet memories? Do you have fun or fond memories that you still reflect upon? Or was it more of a kind of a tough, you don't want to remember that time period and let's move on kind of a vibe?
I always say, I loved high school. I did. I really enjoyed high school. Like I said, I think everyone had a lot of friends back then. Everybody included everyone. And I've heard a lot of people on your shows say the same thing. We just kind of had a camaraderie. Even if you weren't in a particular group with people, you knew them and you were friendly with them, and you supported them. And I look back on it with really fond memories. I mean, I had a really good time at Northview High School. I'm sad that it's not a school anymore. I think a lot of us had a little shell shock when they came out and said that. We were all like really kind of devastated.
And still do.
Kids actually also, friends our age who had children that actually went to Northview as well.
Yeah.
And, so it was kind of it's kind of sad when they closed it, because it's good memories, good times.
And I think a lot of people echo that sentiment. Tina, some of us peaked in high school. That was the age for us. But same question to you about your recollection or your reflection about your Northview time and your Dothan years.
I thought it was great. I loved high school. I thought it was really great. I had a lot of friends. Just like Tracy, I was very social. I was in a bunch of clubs. I did a bunch of things. But I feel like we all talked to each other and said, hey, just It wasn't really a big deal. We supported each other. Like Tracy said, I just feel like it was kind of a small town, Northview town kind of thing. And we all, I don't know, we were all just friendly and liked each other. And I just think it made it so much easier. Part of going to school, it wasn't, I don't think I ever really enjoyed the classes, but I sure did enjoy all the rest of it.
And
Grades were a little low, but the rest of it was a lot of fun.
a couple of closing questions, and I know you're going to leave out people, so I'm already prefacing by saying that. You don't have to explain away. Tracy, who are some of your favorite teachers at Northview and or classes that you took?
Well, I liked Miss Henby's typing class. That was always fun. And I liked Miss Hanahan. She taught social studies. And of course, one of our all-time favorites is Miss Hooks. When we go to our reunion, our whole class recites like the prologue to the Canterbury Tales still. We can all still say what she taught us. I enjoyed Miss Hicks. I liked Coach Hicks. He probably didn't like me so much because I talked all the time in class. He was always asking me to stop talking. If he's on here, he'll probably laugh and remember that. But yeah, I don't really remember having any teachers that I just didn't really like.
Yeah, they were all really good. I remember Mr. Hall, he did history, and he would always do the discussion questions. And when he'd send you your paper back, he'd be like -2, and then there'd be a picture of a little shovel next to it. I don't know what that means. Something about my paragraph or something, I don't know. But I loved his class. Of course, Miss Hooks was always great. I really liked Miss Glanton and Miss Butner. I thought they had a lot of personality and they were a lot of fun.
Senor Grigsby.
Yeah.
Senor Grigsby.
So, but there, I mean, I agree with Tracy. There wasn't really a lot of, I didn't have any teachers that I didn't like. I mean, I thought they were all a lot of fun mostly, and mostly really pretty understanding and pretty tolerant if you think back about it.
They were pretty in touch with teenagers. I mean, it takes a special person to teach high school. I taught, little kids like kindergarten and first grade for a long time. And, teaching those high schoolers, that's a whole different animal.
All right, this is going to test your memory, and I promise we're getting close. Tracy, who did you ride to school with, or who did you drive to school carpool with during your years?
Okay.
That's a good one.
So I rode originally with Eddie Lomanak and Michael Farmer. They took me, they lived behind us. But then when I got my car, it was yellow, it was a yellow Cougar, symbolic of the Cougars.
Yeah.
It was a yellow Cougar. It was big and it was old. And my dad said, sat low to the ground. My dad said, well, I'm getting you something really big. So if you get hit or have an accident, you'll live through it. And I mean, he wasn't kidding. It was big. And the nickname the school gave me, all the people, was the Batmobile.
Yeah.
They called the yellow Cougar the Batmobile. And I rode through my neighborhood in the mornings and picked up my little carpool. I think Jill Taylor might have been in there, actually. She might have been one of them. Charles Sermon and Amy Bryant, maybe. I don't know. I had a little carpool and they paid me like 50 cents a week each.
Nice.
For gas.
Nice. That's when gas was under $1 a gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Tina?
So I think I rode with Bruner Stevenson my first year, and then my second year I rode with Dawn Hathcock. It was usually just me and Dawn in the car. I think Bruner had me and Shay Stevenson. I think Eden Siri went with us too. She was in our neighborhood. And then when I was old enough to drive, I picked up everybody. I mean, whenever somebody couldn't take them, I'd go pick them up in my tiny little 1982 Toyota Tercel, and we would just cram it in there. I can remember being on the little hill going to Northview. Somebody would pull up next to us as a race, and I'd make everybody lean forward, turn around and blow backwards and wave and lean forward because my car was so. But there'd be a ton of us just packed in there.
Yeah.
But
well, neither of you were as cool as I thought I was. I guess it was my sophomore year. Blake Hall in that silver 280Z. You could hear Rick Springfield's Jesse's Girl 6 houses down the street. We never spoke the whole way to school because he kept playing that song.
That's why you like it so much today.
Oh, I cringe. I cringe. I love Blake. I don't know where he is today, but we were cool getting out of the car. But man, that was
That's your
fun
song
time.
that takes you back.
That one right there. I cringe.
Hey,
Well,
I would
Tracy-
like to, I'd like to request somebody do this with you and David and Robert.
I had both of them on a while back. Thanks for watching.
But
Uh,
were you the interviewer? Because that's really not the same.
We kind of did a roundabout, but I share about me every week. But thank you, Tina, for bringing that up. And that's going to bring us to an abrupt stop for this conversation.
I had that question earlier.
No, I want to thank Tracy and Tina. Thank you both for spending some time and sharing a little bit of your journeys and looking back on some fun times during our childhood and adolescent days. So thank you both.
Yeah,
Thanks
you're
for asking
welcome.
us.
It's been
Yeah, it was
fun.
fun.
It's good to
Y'all
see
hang
you.
on just a second. Guys, I've got a whole bunch of Cougars lined up over the next several weeks. Just check back on the group. You'll see the lineup coming up. Thank you for coming and participating, watching, sharing comments each Wednesday night. You guys continue to be safe. Have a good summer. Catch you next week.